Around the globe, mankind has enjoyed some of the most beautiful scenery Mother Nature has ever created. Majestic mountains, lush forests, pristine waterfalls, unspoiled deserts, picturesque islands, magnificent beaches, and crystal blue waters. However, disaster can strike at any moment. Tsunamis can hit with little or no warning, destroying entire villages in their wake. Since the beginning of time, volcanoes have exerted their destructive force, often leaving behind toxic lava flows and poisonous gases. Unpredictable earth shifts and excessive water can create landslides, thus reshaping terrain, demolishing infrastructure, and altering human lives. Conversely, people are often plagued by a lack of potable water. 1 in 9 people lack access to an improved water source. Even with access, demand may outpace supply, and water quality still a problem.
The beginning of Geoscientists Without Borders was when the big tsunami hit in Southeast Asia in Christmas of 2004. It affected me personally and my family because we had lived in Southeast Asia. We knew a number of these areas that had been devastated, Indonesia, Thailand, and so on. I began asking, what can geophysicists do? We determined that there would be 3 main aspects to the program. Number 1, it had to do with doing humanitarian work in the world. It needed to involve our science. And the third thing is it had to involve students in a significant way.
Geoscientists Without Borders, the idea was to fund humanitarian application of geosciences. There are hundreds of thousands of people dying every year from natural hazards. You know, there's a tsunami that kills. There's an earthquake that kills tens of thousands of people. Poison gases that you may have around the volcanic eruption. All these hazards are good projects for GWB.
Being a geophysicist, it is such a no-brainer to support GWB. It showcases the value that geophysics brings not only to the oil and gas industry, but also to the global community, to humanitarian needs all over the world, be it earthquake prediction or groundwater and so on. That's one of the reasons that we're so passionate about it.
The Geoscientists Without Borders program educates communities in understanding the hazards they face and empowers them to develop solutions to mitigate the negative impact these dangers have on their lives.
Romania under communists, they had terrible pollution. I mean, the communists didn't care. So the group of students, they researched this area that it's a heavily mined area in Romania. And they did geochemistry, they did GPR, that's ground penetrating radar, they did shallow seismic to understand what the structure is, they collected water samples from rivers to find what's the extent of contamination. And all these lab results, they have to be processed by a nationally certified geochemistry lab. And in Romania, they have a law which says that if this lab gets something really toxic, they need to notify the authorities and the authorities need to do something about it. It's kind of like, you know, if somebody goes to the cops and says there's a crime, the cops need to do something about it, right? So these students found all these poison toxic elements in the water. They took it to the national lab. The lab said, well, this is really bad. We had to notify the authorities. And these guys were sitting on their butts for, 20 years. They knew what's going on, but nobody had the funds to do it. But now they had to do something according to the law because they got soil samples that were contaminated. So they had to put this whole program in motion even though they didn't want to do it. So That was an interesting, cool aspect that nobody could have predicted when we funded it.
We just don't understand how persistently active volcanoes are affecting their local environment. There are people living very close to this volcano. It doesn't look like it's erupting most of the time, and that's the point. There are prodigious amounts of gas coming out, sometimes more, sometimes rather less, but huge amounts of gas. And there are effects on the local water, on the soils, and of course on the plants and animals that are growing there. So what I'm doing is looking at how small gravity changes that I can measure on the surface, what they tell us about the underneath of the volcano, and then linking that in with the environmental impact that the volcano is having, both locally and globally. And it's only through the use of citizen scientists contributing in this way, collecting both the gravity data and the other data that we have to collect at the same time about local conditions. It's only by using citizen scientists that we can actually get as much data as we need. One or two scientists certainly couldn't do it on their own. You need to engage citizens in helping us to do this.
Around the world, Geoscientists Without Borders is making a difference by helping communities through shared knowledge and hands-on training. We're helping to bring sustainable, clean water to villages, improving disaster planning strategies, and cleaning up toxins in the environment. Geoscientists Without Borders was recently honored for the 2014 Best Outreach Program by World Oil. The GWB program was made possible by the fundraising efforts of the SEG Foundation. We are proudly sponsored by Schlumberger, Kiwi Energy, Petroleum Geoservices, CGG, Global Geophysical Services, and Santos. For more information about Geoscientists Without Borders, please visit our website at www.seg.org/GWB.